Welcome to DubLife Diaries, the podcast where passion meets the open road. I'm Joe Person, your host, and also a lifelong dubber. Buckle up, because this ride is just beginning. This podcast is sponsored by Volksmania magazine. Good times, great cars, awesome Volksmaniacs. Visit Volksmania.com to learn more about this class-leading VW magazine. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Volkswagen fanatics, air-cooled addicts, and lovers of all things classic, welcome back to another episode of DubLife Diaries, where we dive deep into the stories behind the people shaping the Volkswagen world. Today, I've got an absolute legend in the house. I'm so excited for this one. If you've ever fallen down the rabbit hole of rare, of weird, of one-of-a-kind Volkswagens, if you've ever searched for that dream car, that impossible find, you'll probably know the name Randy Carlson. Randy's the supermind behind oldbug.com, the ultimate online hub for classic VW enthusiasts. He also has a very successful YouTube page called Carcheology, I think about 15,000 subscribers or so. This man doesn't just find rare Volkswagens, he uncovers history. He's an appraiser. He's an automotive TV show host. His accolades and magazine features just continue to grow and grow. You've seen him on, and hold your breath, because this is a whole bunch, Discovery Channel Sticker Shock, Jay Leno's Garage, Barn Find Hunter, The Bug Movie. He's also played parts in Lords of the Car Hordes, Rusted Development, Monster Garage, Herbie Fully Loaded. Man, I could probably continue to go on, but I'll stop here. Here's the thing, though. Randy isn't just a collector. He's a master storyteller. Every car has a past, and he's the guy who digs it up, dusts it off, and brings it back to life. And today, we're going to dive headfirst into some of these stories. Some you've heard, hopefully some that'll blow your mind. So grab your favorite cold boy. Let's hit the road. Randy Carlson, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. That's a hell of an intro.
yeah, man. Hey,
doesn't seem real, but I guess I've done some stuff.
Yeah, that's so awesome, man. So look, I'm very respectful of your time. I want to jump right into it. So I got to ask you right up front, what got you into Volkswagens?
Well, VWs were cheap and easy, in the 80s. I graduated high school in 84, and in my group of buddies and stuff, the first guy to get his license was my friend Nick, who had a Bug. So I kind of drove around in that with him, and high school auto shop guys were building VWs, and it just seemed like an easy thing to get started with, and I did, and it just never friggin' stopped.
What was like maybe your first real VW memory?
Oh gosh, first VW memory, that's maybe a little tough. I mean, certainly riding around in my friend Nick's 68 auto stick Bug.
Hey, cool.
We had some really wacky times with that, and thrashed that car horribly, and painted it in his driveway, and fixed it up, did crazy stuff to it. But that was maybe kind of the first VW memory. My dad was a car guy, so I grew up around a whole bunch of different collector cars and things, but he didn't have a VW, but he did have a 356 Porsche, which was that he had traded a VW in on before I was born. But I don't know. It was just, they were cheap and easy and everywhere. And there was obviously a scene going on, and it was a fun thing to get into and be a part of.
Yeah. So obviously today, right, the scene is nuts. It's much larger, but when you first got into it back then, was it a different vibe than it is today?
Well, everything was a different vibe in the 80s, certainly. It was all day glow and big hair, and kind of a different thing. I mean, the cow look scene and the bright colors of what was happening then, is a bit different than now. And you see a resurgence in that look too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But, it was as exciting then as it is now. Maybe even a little more so, just because I was young and getting into the whole scene, and everything was new and everything was super rad, and it was just fun.
Yeah, so I just got to share with you, because you said the word auto stick. That was my first Beetle. I had a 72 standard Beetle, and it was an auto stick. And back then, 96, it was tough to find parts for, that little vacuum solenoid deal. and I ended up putting a 4-speed in it way back then. Not me, I had to pay somebody to do it, but just a cool memory because that was my first core memory of Volkswagens for me was learning how to drive that thing and pushing it down the road and always thinking to myself, man, this thing actually does a lot better than I ever thought it would, uh,
But I think that's VWs in general. They do things that other cars don't do. I had other friends that had big lifted, Chevy trucks and things like that. And they'd go out and get caught in the mud, and then Nick would show up with his bug and drive circles around him. And it was, I don't know, they're really, really approachable and really fun little creatures. And the more you get to know them, the more you kind of get hooked.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So let's cover a couple of the websites. You've got oldbug.com, carcheology.com, and californiacar.com. What's the spark behind these websites?
Oh gosh, let's see. The quick story of Old Bug kind of goes back to late 90s. So when Volkswagen introduced the new Beetle and brought that out into the world, I started up a company selling accessories and hop-up parts and stuff for those cars. And so I was looking for a domain name for that, and I found newbug.com. And then always being an old VW guy, I just kind of searched oldbug.com and it was available. And so I bought the domain and I just put up a picture of a split window bug that I had at the time. And that was it. And I just thought it was kind of funny if somebody went to oldbug.com, there's a picture of an old bug. And then I had an oval window bug that I wanted to sell. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to post up some pictures of it on Old Bug and just see what happens. So I made a little ad for this project oval window and posted it up. And like a week later, I get a phone call and somebody bought it. And I went, this is kind of interesting. So then I started hitting up friends and I'm like, if somebody had something for sale, I thought I'd, throw it up there, give it a try. And it just kind of built from there. So it became a good platform to market my own stuff as well as everybody else's. And I've been running that site since 99 now. So that's a long time.
I love the press page on that site. I think at one point when I looked at it, I thought I saw Hall of Fame or something somewhere in my thoughts, but that's basically what it is because it's buried down there at the bottom. But once you uncover it, it's like, oh, that's who Randy is. Okay.
I mean, it's so weird. I started putting that together because I was having a hard time keeping track of everything. And it's like, I'll build something and it'll get in a magazine and that's cool. And then the magazine goes into the stack. But I don't know. I started putting it all together in that page. And when I did that and started adding it on, it kind of scared me. It was like, holy crap, I've done a lot of stuff. I'm always looking forward, not necessarily looking back, but to do that and lay that all out there and kind of see where I've been and what I've done, I mean, it almost like doesn't seem real. It's like, how did that much time go by and how did that happen? But it's been such a fun run. I mean, I've had a blast. Every single one of these cars has been a great adventure, and the people that I've met along the way, and you
That's
know,
that's the
I
whole reason I'm doing this podcast is because of what that last statement you made, the people along the way. That's what I feel like needs to be celebrated inside of this Volkswagen community because there's awesome folks out there that have great stories to tell. So, what's the background behind Carcheology?
archaeology. I don't know. I love cars, right? And I love the history of cars, and I love to dig old dusty things out of barns and stuff. When I look at one point, I kind of looked at my life and I went, okay, what is it that I do that just really turns me on? And it's seeing this bit of history on wheels that's sitting in a garage somewhere that really needs to be out in the world. And so I started sharing those stories and pulling these things out. And a friend of mine used the term carcheology. It's like you're digging up, this history and bringing it out. And it's like, you know what, that's solid. Can I use that? And
It is
he's like,
solid.
oh yeah. So, I did the trademark on the name and just kind of started pushing that out there, not really knowing where it was going to go. I still don't even know where it's going to go, but it really kind of encapsulates and describes what I love to do. I love to find the car. I love to study it, learn the history, the people that are behind it and have been involved with it, and then share that story with the world. And, much like archaeology, digging artifacts out of the dirt, it's the same thing, just these
Sure.
artifacts, four wheels.
Yeah. So let's talk about that real quick. Let's dive in. What's like the rarest maybe Volkswagen that you've ever unearthed or discovered? Where was it hiding? How'd you even manage to get your hands on it?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's been a lot, but the stuff that I've always really been into is the freakiest stuff. For many years I sponsored this freak show display at the VW Classic events and things, and I found that you could get more attention with something that was really wacky, even if it was a pile of crap, than you can with doing a real traditional build on something. So I've always focused on that weird stuff. And as a result, when people see weird VWs, they often contact me and say, "Hey, check this out. Would you be interested in that?" So it's been kind of a cool thing. So like recently in the past couple of years, I had a call from a guy back in Chicago area, and he had a Volkswagen single cab that had been turned into a fire truck for use at an amusement park. And this guy actually ended up, he had went to look at it. It was for sale. He couldn't quite make the deal. He contacted me because he knew I was into crazy VWs. And then turns out I ended up buying two of them, a matched pair from this guy, this collector in Chicago, and then brought them out to California. And one of them I sold to a buddy of mine, Robert Skinner from Skinner Classics, who
Yeah. I've seen
is
him.
just a great VW nut and a big helper of the whole VW scene. So he was a perfect home for one of them, and I took the other. And we we went out together to pick the things up and bring them back. And it was just a great adventure. We did a really nice photo shoot for the magazines and stuff with it, and these things were just totally insane time capsule, all original trucks
Man,
that were just
dream.
weird as hell, but just super fun.
It's like the ultimate dream find, really, you know?
Well, and the crazy part, it's not like I was looking for that. It was just a random, email. Hey, I know you're into crazy stuff. Would you be interested? And that's been really wacky in recent years. It's like now that I've been doing this long enough and I've been out there enough that people know where to find me, it's almost like I don't even need to hunt. The stuff just
Yeah.
kind of
Oh,
finds me.
that's great.
People always ask me, how do you find this stuff? I said, well, somebody told me about it.
Yeah.
But
They tip you off.
yeah, definitely. I mean, some stuff though, I've come across some really interesting cars that you just see something, you get a little vibe that it might be something special, and then you go with it. There was a Beetle that I found for sale on the Samba website it was a 66 Beetle sedan, nothing real special at first look, but it had a little bronze plate that was behind the spare tire there that said Emden 100,000. And I went, what's up with that? So I started doing a little research. Emden was the secondary plant that Volkswagen put together in Germany to keep up with Beetle production for the US. And after contacting the people at Volkswagen, I get this picture of this car coming off the assembly line at the Emden plant with the whole workers all around it, a big bouquet of flowers on the hood. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. So that car ended up being a real special find, even though at first glance it was just a faded old bug. But it ended up being a very special one that ended up going back to Emden's 50th anniversary event, which was really cool too. So, and now it's back here in the US in a collection in the Pacific Northwest, I think. But
Amazing. What a
it's
cool
fun.
story. Tell me about the craziest barn find, whether it be Volkswagen or not, like one that just absolutely blew your mind.
Gosh, I mean, there's been a couple of really insane ones. Probably the coolest one from a personal experience point of view was some years ago, I had a Tempo Matador truck for sale on oldbug.com. And the Tempo Matador, the first ones of those used Volkswagen power. And then eventually Volkswagen kind of cut off Tempo from selling them engines because they had come out with their own truck and they didn't want the competition. Anyway,
Sure.
there's not a whole lot of these Tempo Matador trucks out there, but I received a call from somebody that was back east, and they said they have a Tempo Matador, but it's a camper, and would I be interested in it? And I said, of course, I'd be interested. So as the story went on, and the guy started to reveal more about it, this thing ended up being a coach built one off, like total high end crazy bespoke camper that was built for members of the Vanderbilt family on the East Coast so that they could tour Europe. So it ended up just being this really insane thing. I totally, I said, yeah, I'm absolutely interested in it. I threw everything I had at it. I said, I'll offer you this much for it because it's all I had. And they said, okay. And I ended up going back to Newport, Rhode Island, where the Breakers mansion is there. And that it's that side of the Vanderbilt family there. They had this camper stored in their country house, which was in Pound Ridge, New York, and a custom garage that was built for it. And then a friend of mine, a Volkswagen dealer back in Connecticut, there, Gene Langan, helped me get it out of there, get it back to his shop so we get it up on wheels to roll it out, get it shipped out here to California. And I mean, it was a really, really special vehicle. But the most interesting thing to me was how it opened up this whole story of the history of the Vanderbilt family for me. And it gave me an opportunity to, meet members of the family and, take tours of properties and stuff there by the family themselves. There's people can tour the Breakers Mansion there in Newport. It's a big tourist destination, but the top floor of the property there is reserved just purely for the family. Well, I'm there with the family member that's got the key, and so I got to see things there that people don't normally see, and go through the stables there at the Breakers where they have the Vanderbilt family coaches and things there. And there was another barn find car, an old Cadillac that was sitting in a part of that building that nobody ever sees. That,
Wow.
it was these sort of pinch me moments where you're like, how on earth did I end up here basically picking at the Vanderbilt's garage and all of that? And it was just, I don't know, to me, that was probably the most special find. It certainly wasn't the most valuable, but it was the craziest one for me just because of the people and the stories behind that whole family and
Yeah.
how they came to wealth and power. And
So
yeah,
awesome.
it was way cool, really super cool.
Yeah, that was way cool to hear that. Do you have a VW that you ever, scored throughout your career that you feel like might be the one that got away now? Maybe even regret selling it.
Oh, I kind of fall in love with all of them because they're all
A
pretty
real
awesome.
fan.
But I realized early on, I'm raising a family, I'm trying to run a business, I'm trying to survive doing this, that I can't really keep everything. I'm not. I I build something up, I give it my love and attention, and then it's got to go to pay the bills that I ran up building it, and then hopefully keep the wheels going into the next one. But there was one car that I had that I kept for a fair bit of time, and it really kind of became mine. And it was a car called the Rosensteel Roadster. And a guy in Arizona, Dave Rosensteel, he's a postal worker that just loves to bang metal in his home garage, had made this kind of Hevmuller style
Ooh.
car, a little roadster. And I bought it from him and I finished it off and really kind of made it my own, got it into some of the magazines and things. And I just absolutely loved that car. I loved the way it drove. It was so unique. You could show up at any event. People knew the car, they knew it was my car, and it fit me better than any other VW I've ever had. But it had to go because, times got tough. It was like 2008, recession's happening.
Oh yeah.
I've got kids to feed, a mortgage to pay. And well, what do I have around here I can sell?
Yeah.
And I'm not good looking enough to stand on a street corner and make it. So off the Rosensteel went. But if I could buy that car back, I would do it. I would love to have that one back.
Do you still think there's some hidden gems out there, or do you think we pretty much unearthed them all? I know it's a big hobby now.
Well, there's always something new out there, and like there's somebody today that's parking a car in the back of their garage that is not going to move for 40 years. So, time gets away from us, projects, dreams sometimes don't happen, and I it's human nature to squirrel that stuff away
Right.
and keep it, for a rainy day, or to have that someday dream, I'm going to build this car. So I think the supply of things to find in barns and special treasures is never ending. I mean, there's always something out there to find.
Good. That gives us hope.
Yeah, definitely.
That gives us
No, I
hope.
know when I go, somebody's going to come to my garage and go, "Holy shit, look at all this stuff,"
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. Ever stumbled across any type of VW prototypes or anything that was never really even released or anything crazy like that?
Not necessarily. I mean, I've seen some interesting cars like that in my travels and stuff, but nothing that I've really discovered. There was one car, probably the closest thing was this car that was built by an automotive trade school in Germany that was based on a Volkswagen. And this was every year that this group in Kaiserslautern, Germany, I always screw that name up, they would do a class project where they would design and build a car as the class project, and it would teach these kids automotive design. It would teach them the business practices of building a car, all the skills of building it, metal shaping, the mechanical parts of it, electrical, interior, all of that. They would build a car, and a handful of those were built on Volkswagen platforms because that was easy to work with. And I did come across one of those cars that was down in San Diego here that I ended up buying and then bringing back out to show folks, and that was a really special car.
Nice. It sounds like it. So, these cars have deep history. They're obviously connected. We're touching on Germany now. They're connected to the war. There's a lot of crazy myths and things that, have been developed over time. Any wild conspiracy theories or anything that you have learned or play into in the VW world?
Gosh, I don't know about conspiracy theories or anything like that. I mean, obviously the whole World War II era Nazi connection to those real early cars, has a mystique to it, and
Yeah.
some of it a little uncomfortable for some. And I had a friend once that had found a really early Beetle, World War II era Beetle, that he was trying to track the history on, and eventually he got the info from Germany that it was a car that had been delivered to Hermann Goering's field offices. And Goering was basically Hitler's right hand man, and was the butcher of Prague, they called him. And I mean, he was a badass dude. Or actually, was that Goering? I might be confusing it, but that car had like a bit of evil vibe to it because of that connection.
Wow,
And
dude, that's cool.
he was.
I mean, not really, but yeah, that's kind of what I was hunting for, though. Something like that. So just a vibe like that.
Well, and that's kind of the way it is. I mean, obviously there was a horrible time in world history, and
Sure.
a lot of nasty crap happened there. And none of that is the result of these cars. These cars just happened to be there when all of that was happening.
Right, right.
But and from that era and from all of that, spawned the Beetle that we love today, and all of that. So I think it's an important part of history, but a car can be in a place or be in the hands of somebody that did some evil stuff, and it's kind of hard to extract that from it. You can't, if you've got, I don't know, what was it, Ted Bundy had a Beetle or something, and it's like Would you want to have Ted Bundy's Beetle? Probably not, but maybe
Yeah,
somebody out there would.
yeah, that'd be kind of dark.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think there's darkness out there in humanity, and sometimes these cars are in the room when that stuff happens, and I can see how people will turn away from that because they don't want to have a reminder of a bad time. So,
Yeah, I think I can understand and even relate to it. So, in your eyes, why is preserving VW history so important?
well, I mean, I think preserving history of everything is important. You know, I think that there's soul in the past. You know, I love these cars an awful lot, but more so I love the history of the cars. And you know, and it doesn't have to be some crazy history. It could just be some general owner that bought this thing and kept it and drove it all over the place. I just I love to celebrate that human connection to these cars and see that that story goes along with each car. So that's the way that I kind of try to preserve the history of these cars. I mean, obviously, preserving the cars themselves so that they can continue to run for a long time, I think is far better than throwing them out, doing restorations and things like that. I mean, number one, it's fun to do. It's There's not a whole lot in our world that we can make better with our own two hands, but we can do that with a an old bug or any old thing. So, you know, I don't know. I think it's fun more than anything else. You know, it's fun. It could be a decent investment. It can allow you an avenue to meet a lot of really fun people in the VW scene. So,
Yeah.
and why is it important? Well, you got to do something, and that's and this is pretty fun to do.
So in the beginning of it all, you mentioned, one of the reasons you got into it was because they were cheap. And naturally, that's, a reason for any of us to. But over the years, the market has completely gone berserk, especially even maybe a year or two post COVID. Even now, I mean, the prices on some of these cars are just so high. I mean, do you think we're in a bubble, or is this just the evolution of collecting?
Well, it's the evolution of collecting, really. You know, I think that there's a generational wave of collectible items where people that, you know, experience them as when they were young, you know, now get to a point where they've got the money to spend. They want to have their high school car back. They want to, you know, just kind of relive those memories. And that nostalgia fuels a rise in value. It certainly fuels demand, and the whole supply and demand curve comes into play. So, you know, I look at the cars that my father was into. He really loved like 30s and 40s era American classics. And those cars don't have the following now that they did when he was alive. So I can see in the future where VW values drop as a result of that, just because there's not as many people that are into them. But the VW, unfortunately, the VW has such a following to it, and there's such a community about it, and such a scene that's gone on for a long period of time. And I think it'll have much more staying power than, you know, something that was an off brand or something that doesn't have that background. You know, I've got some old British cars in my collection, and you know, is somebody going to really care about a Humber Super Snipe, you know, which is a really obscure British car? You know, I nobody's going to know what it is, but somebody's always going to know what a Volkswagen Beetle is.
Yeah, good.
I think that helps, but values have risen. I I think the world saw a really crazy bubble just post COVID,
Yeah, yeah, I feel that.
and that seems to have deflated a bit. Now values are down to what they were prior to COVID, I think. And you know, it's and obviously with our world and all the crazy crap that's going on out there, a lot of people are focused on other stuff. So
Yeah,
I think the market right now is a little soft. I think it's a great opportunity to buy because there's some deals that are out there, and there's some cars that are coming to market that have been, you know, stashed away for a long time. And you know, I see it as a an incredible buying opportunity right now.
Yeah, so a collector or a real enthusiast, obviously somebody with a lot of buying experience. Are there any trends that you see coming? Like what's the next big thing for VW collecting, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I'm starting to see it outside of the air-cooled market and see, some of the early water-cooled stuff is really starting to ramp up as far as interest and values in those cars. You get up into the 70s and 80s era VWs, try to find a good first generation GTI or something, and already the prices on those are really ramping up. But I see that there's a lot of room for that to expand. They're not the cars that I'm into necessarily, but I think I think that following that generational wave of okay, if you graduated in 84 like I did, well, what was the car that you dreamed of having? Well, man, I would have loved GTI, but I couldn't afford a new car there, but and I'd love to have one now, and so that I think that that's a definite spot. I think, let's see what else. I've always been kind of looking at Carmagillas, thinking that they're about ready to take off and go insane, and they haven't really, and maybe it'll never happen. But
Hmm.
I I always think that we're going to see some real early Gias break 100 grand at auction, and I haven't really seen that.
I
But
no, I hope that happens. Now I've got one, but it's not early, it's not 50s. It's actually a 71.
mm,
And I found it with a in Pennsylvania on a female owned one owner, 46,000 miles. Found it on Facebook Marketplace. Went out and picked it up. It was, dusty and in the back of this dude's barn. It turned out it was his mother's car. And yeah, it was great. Very, very respectable price on it, meaning in my favor. And I put it on a U-Haul trailer and brought it back home, and it's sitting out front now. It's a 71 though, so it's not the low light or anything like that, or 50s or even 60s. It's got the faux wood dash and
mm,
the black topper that cracks up in the sun and stuff. But man, it's a beautiful car, and it drives like a dream. I mean,
yeah,
seriously, it's just so
those are
smooth, and yeah, great car.
yeah, great era of car of VW for a driver. The late 60s, early 70s stuff in today's world, you can keep up with traffic.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. Good call.
it,
You're right.
they're just great. And finding a car like you found, something that has low miles and good history, and that's the dream. I don't
Yeah,
matter what year it is or what model, but
right.
it,
You'll appreciate this. When I picked it up, it had some paperwork that had come with it, and in the paperwork, it's over there in my little cabinet, was the original invoice or receipt or work order with the options and the footrest and the couple extra things that his mom bought with it. But it was like
cool.
$2,300 or something with the few options and the AM FM radio. And yeah, it's really cool. So my wife wanted one. She said it's the only Volkswagen, classic Volkswagen that I like. So I had to find her one. And then we had another problem. She didn't want to drive a stick. So as
Mhm.
I'm doing my research and I'm looking through, I'm like, wait a minute. Carmen Gia has a early 70s model with the auto stick. And I drove an auto stick in high school. So I know my wife will enjoy that. So I found it. And I was so happy that I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, great car, definitely.
Yeah, thanks, man. So if somebody looking to get into vintage VWs right now, they're still a solid investment. I feel the days of the good deals aren't necessarily long gone based off what you're saying, right? There's probably
No,
be those days again.
well, I mean, those days are every day. There's bargains out there. You can troll through Facebook Marketplace and see deals on stuff, and you just need to be willing to get off your butt and go get them. You gotta
And
jump
fast.
and jump fast
Yeah,
and
fast. I
and
think
grab the
speed.
deals. But
Yeah.
you know, and you don't always pull a fish into the boat when you go fishing, and you don't always catch that car, but the more you chase it, the more you're going to find. And there are some great deals that are out there, and there's some great opportunities to be the next caretakers of these cars. You just,
Yeah.
got to be at the right place at the right time and grab them.
Yeah, I agree. There's still some good stuff out there. And I see stuff all the time that like you, I just wish it was an endless supply of wish I could go out back and pick a few $1,000 bills off the money tree and, and,
Yeah.
and go and buy some of these cars because the more you investigate, the more time you spend searching, the more opportunities, like just like you said, the more opportunities you'll find. And then, it's a matter of the letdown of, man, can I make this work? No, no, not this time. So you just have to let them go, but all good, all good. All right, moving past that,
Yeah.
electric conversions. I want to get your thought on these. Are you on the side of keep things original, or are you into the electric conversions at all? Where do you stand on that debate in the VW community?
I'm a big fan supporting people and doing whatever the hell they want to do. As long as they're not hurting other people and they're having a good time and
Yeah.
it makes them love their car, I,
Okay.
I'm all over it.
All right. Fair
Now,
enough.
if someone were to take a really bitchin' all virgin, original preserved car and screw it up, well, then I see a little sadness in that. But, the electric conversion thing, I've got a friend that bought a oval window from me years ago, and it was his daily driver for a bit. And a few years ago, he said, I'm having it converted to electric. And I went, really? Okay, fine. Go for it. And then he got it done. And he said, Randy, you got to come drive this thing. And I went, okay, fine. And I went to his place and I really kind of wanted to hate it. It was like, not that I would have said anything to him or make him feel bad, but it was, to me, it was something that I wouldn't have done necessarily to my car. But having a chance to drive it and to feel the way the electric motor works and just the way the whole system was done and to see how well the conversion was done and how it really didn't hack up this really nice little overwindow bug. It was cool. And I left there going, man, this is pretty badass. Now, if it's really expensive. I think he spent 30 grand or more on doing this conversion, which
Yeah.
is a lot to put into a car that's worth maybe 30 grand. But, it was, I don't know, I thought it was pretty cool. And I think as time goes on and technology goes on and the stuff is more available and easier set up for enthusiasts to kind of plug and play, what the hell? If it makes you want to drive your car more and get more enjoyment out of it, then do it.
I want to drive one. I want to drive an electric one because I know that technology. I've driven electric cars, and the few that I've driven, even the Tesla, I'm surprised at the torque, the low end torque, and just the handling because of the low center of gravity because of the weight of the batteries. Yeah, man, I've thought about, wow, that might be kind of cool, but I always like to ask that, especially to guys that are deep rooted like you, because well, there's a debate, and that debate is keep them natural, keep them air cooled, or be cool and if that's cool and enjoy the electric conversion. But all good, all good.
Big live and let live kind of a guy.
Yeah,
If you want to take your car and paint it plaid and put it on a Bronco chassis or something, go for it, man. I
yeah.
mean, if it makes you happy and it increases your joy of having that car, that's why these cars are here. And for I think any of us to talk crap and tell people what they should do with their car, I think is foolish. Just support the scene, support the people around you, and
Yeah,
have fun with
yeah,
these cars.
man. And I can tell that's your heart too, because supporting the scene. Because you got back in touch with me, and you don't know me from Adam. So, man, again, I appreciate that so much. So let's do some quick reaction type questions. What's the most overrated air cooled VW in your opinion? Overrated.
Overrated air cooled VW. Gosh, I mean, it's kind of hard to say, but I think split screen buses are really cool, but they also kind of suck to live with because they're slow and a little dangerous. And I love them. I don't mind going slow. I'm used to it. It's like they're beautiful, but but I see a lot of people that have gotten into the scene because they want to have one because it's the thing to have, and they're not necessarily old VW people, but they want to have the microbus because that's the thing to have. And
Yeah.
then they get it and they realize that it's not comfortable, it's slow, it's loud, the heat doesn't work. You're literally, the front bumper is right in front of your face, and that sort of thing. And so I think that there's been a lot of people that have followed that trend that have then gotten those things and went, well, wait a second, this isn't fun, you know.
So
But
you're not the only person that's said that the
well, that's good.
the split window bus, and most of the time it's for the same reasons: safety, comfort, the way it drives and handles, etc. Hell yeah, they're cool, and I can even get in line there and say, I'd love to have one, a rare one, looking good, fully restored, etc. But yeah, I that's not the first time I've heard the split window bus, so I can certainly understand that. All right, next one up. Dream road trip in a VW, classic air cooled. Where are you going? Who are you taking?
I'd love to do a cross country trip. Doesn't have to be from any particular destination to any other destination. I think it would just be fun to traverse our country in an old bug in today's world. And as far as who I'd take with me, I'd probably take my dog and have it just be me. Get,
Take my
get
dog.
away from it all, shut the phone off, and just drive.
What a feeling. I know that feeling. It don't matter who you are, what your accomplishments are in life. That feeling right there is one that no matter who you are, you can relate to. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, no, that freedom part of it and a little bit of personal adventure. I've not done a lot of real long distance running in air cooled VWs, driven them a lot of miles, but I think I would like to do a big like cross country run and some good old bug or bus or whatever. We'll see.
Sweet. Yeah, sweet. That'd be awesome. I would too. And I'm probably gonna do maybe early 70s bay window in my mind, if that's what plays out. So best VW show out there, no debate, bar none. I know you've probably seen a lot of them and been to a lot of them. What's the best one you've been to?
Well, the coolest one in my eyes and in my memory is the Hessisch Oldendorf Vintage VW show in Germany that they do every 4 years, I think it is. And they kind of take over this whole little German town, and even the shop owners and stuff get into it. So like the window displays are VW related, and the church allows a display of a Volkswagen in there, in the middle of the church, and all of the earliest VWs from all around Europe show up at this event, and it's on cobblestone streets, and it's just the whole thing is a postcard and a time travel kind of a thing. And that event, kind of far and above everything else, I think is the coolest one, or provided the most amazing memories for me to flash back to as I think about it. Just really, really cool scene.
Awesome. What's your favorite VW of all time? If you could have just one, and that's it. That's all you can have. Which one's it going to be?
Uh,
Ask every
well,
guest this question.
if I could have that Rosensteel Roadster back, I would do it.
Okay.
Or maybe I had a crew cab truck, a 62 crew cab that was like the first VW that I ever got into a magazine, way back in the 80s. And even though it was not the best bus in the world, and certainly by my standards today, the work that I did on it then was crap. But that vehicle opened up this whole world to me and started me on this path of being able to do what I love and provide for my family and travel the world and write for magazines and do all sorts of stuff. Everything started with that truck. So if that thing popped back up, that would be one to grab and never let go.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, man. Started it all, and that's good. I appreciate you sharing those memories. So, what's next for you? Any cool projects in the pipeline or anything like that?
I mean, I never know what's around the corner. I've got projects that are out in the garage right now that I'm working on this weekend. I'm putting the original engine back into this 356 Porsche that belonged to my father.
Ooh,
I've owned that car now for over 30 years, but when I got it, it didn't run right. The motor was really tired. And so I pulled the engine out and just couldn't afford to rebuild it, and I kept running VW motors in it because you could do that and they were cheap. But I finally ponied up to rebuild, the numbers matching original engine for that 356. And so it's going in there on Saturday. And so I'm looking forward to that. And then other VW projects, I've actually got another car that this guy Dave Rosensteel had done the metal work on. It's kind of a coupe version of that Roadster that I had, and that one's waiting in the wings for me to dive into and build it into something cool.
awesome. Sounds like a dream come true. So where can people find you? Where can they check out your work? How do people, get in touch with you if they want to see what you're up to?
Well, obviously oldbug.com that's the site that I run as a business, and people post their cars for sale on that, and I'm easily reachable through that. All the email addresses and phone numbers on there all point to me, so I'm easy to find there. On social media, Old Bug has a good Facebook page. You can find me there. Carcheology on YouTube, you can check me out there. There's also a Carcheology page on Facebook as well. Instagram, I'm kind of an Instagram fiend right now. I use it far more than I probably should, but you can find me on Instagram. It's Bug and Box. That's BUGNBOX, and I think I've got like 38,000 people or something that follow my madness on Instagram, which is kind of fun to see.
Okay, so I guess finally, any last words for the DubLife Diaries listeners, all the VW lovers out there, final words of wisdom or anything from you?
Oh God, I don't know. I think the main thing that I'm seeing right now that I'd like to see people embrace is to really share your cars with the younger generation as much as you can. I know that sounds like an old guy thing to say as I sit here with my gray beard and look like an old guy, but the way to make sure that the scene continues is to make sure there's people that want these cars and love the scene that's about it. And so getting younger kids into it, go to some car show that's not a VW show and show up, park your bug in amongst all these guys with their tuner Hondas and things like that, and show them what's cool, and let them sit behind the wheel, take them for a spin, let them drive it, whatever. You got to get some hands-on experience with the younger generation with these cars so they can see how fun they are and meet the people that are involved with it and how cool the scene is, and that will help it continue on, long after we're gone.
That's awesome. Those were some awesome parting words. It's been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's been great. I love your enthusiasm. I love the questions that you have are good, and I like what you're doing, man. I think this is going to grow into something cool, and
Thank you, man. Thank
I
you.
thank you very much for reaching out.
I do have one final question. And look, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get goosebumps when I bring this one up. What's Jay Leno like, man?
Jay's pretty awesome. So the quick Leno stories was I had a car for sale for a customer of mine, and I had it posted on eBay, and it was a weird little French car called a Panhard PL17. Goofy little car. Anyway, I get this phone call on the car, and voice on the other end goes, "Hey, my name's Jay. I'm from Burbank. I'm interested in this car." And I'm like, "Say that again," And sure enough, it was Jay. And he's all, "I don't like the auction thing, but I'm really interested in the car. Just tell me how much, and will you sell it to me?" And so I contacted the owner and I said, "Hey, I've got this guy that's interested. What's your happy price?" And I gave Jay a call back, and he said, "Fine, let's do it." And the car was in Texas, and was being shipped to him. And I told him, hey, when that car gets there, I'd love to come up and see it and meet you. And he's like, yeah, no problem. So the car shows up, and we connected, and he invited me out to take a tour of the garage. And he was the most gracious, most almost Rain Man level knowledgeable gearhead dude I think I've ever met. And I went up there with my wife and my son and a friend of mine, and he just gave us a personal tour of the whole place. If there was a car or a motorcycle that we had interest in, he would fire it up. He'd tell us all the history of everything, and it was just freaking amazing. He was just such a positive dude to meet, and just so kind and so knowledgeable, that from that point on, if there was ever an opportunity to help him in any way, I'm all in. So, I met some of the people there that worked for him, and if they needed a VW for filming or something, they would ask me if I knew where one was. And so over the years, I've helped them, gather cars for the filming, for the shows and stuff. I met this one young guy up in Portland that was like this little Leno in my head, as far as the way that he had this knowledge of all of this stuff. And he's showing me his collection, and I'm going, you need to be with Jay. I want to see you two get together, because you guys will be bouncing off the walls together, having a good time. And so I kind of pushed to see that happen, or to see if I could somehow make that connection. And that happened. And then I went down when that happened and watched that, and just kind of giggled like, yeah, this was really cool. But it's been great. I mean, it's turned into a thing where I've never asked them for anything. I've never, it's just, if I get a call from Jay or one of his people, I'll drop everything and handle it, just because I'm such a supporter of what they've got going on. I think he's the patron saint of the whole collector car world. It's like he's the Pope, and
Yeah.
the garage is the Vatican, right? And you go there and you see this place. It's
I had
insane.
that. That's why I had to ask. I wasn't going to let you get away without asking about Jay Leno, just because, anybody that's a car enthusiast at any point in their life is going to intersect with knowing that he's a mastermind in the car world. And then when you, like you said, when you hear him and see him and see the passion and the enthusiasm talking about cars and explaining them, and you can just tell. I mean, it's just. But so yeah, I just I had to ask. I had to ask what he was like. But cool, man. Thanks again, brother.
No, thank you. That was great. I look forward to watching or listening to the podcast, and definitely will boot it out there and share it with as many people as possible.
So, man, thank you. And that's a wrap for this episode of DubLife Diaries. Thanks for riding along with us and diving into these incredible stories of the people in the dubs that drive their dreams. If you love today's episode, don't forget to subscribe or hit that follow button so you never miss an adventure. Do you have a story to tell, or know somebody else who's living the dub life? Awesome! Reach out to us. You can find us on all socials at DubLife Diaries, or shoot me an email. I'm not hard to find. DubLifeDiaries@gmail.com. Until next time, keep the engines humming and the wheels turning, and always follow the road that inspires you. This is Joe Person. I'm signing off. I'll catch you on the next ride.